We pick up with Karen waiting in the lobby of the hospital to find out how Shane is doing. The doctor comes out to explain what's happened, after finally grasping that the father is not present because he's stranded on the moon. Shane's bike was hit by a car, hit and run, and now he's in surgery to deal with the bleeding in his brain.
What the hell is going on here? No, I thought he broke a bone or something.
Technically, the skull is a bone, 22, so a lot to choose from. After the titles, we pick up with Ed alone on the moon. Well, alone in his habitat. There's Ruskies out there, of course. But to keep him from going stir-crazy, Danielle calls up to talk from Mission Control and helping him to plan out his day. One part of which is setting up a camera to take pictures if the Russians come knocking. I have a similar one to know whether or not I need to let the cat in. While that's going on, the crew of Apollo 24, led by Ellen, is on a talk show, where her recent marriage to Brock comes up and the natural question of why Deke Slayton isn't commanding the mission. He just says that Ellen's a fine commander, but it leads to the more awkward question. The injury Danielle suffered. Seems that it's reflecting on women in space, that the conditions on the moon are no place for mere girls. Deke dodges the question skillfully when Ellen says women should have been in the program from the beginning by noting the commander's always right. And Harrison, who says he prefers to be called Harry actually, says he already served under her on Apollo 19, so there's no reason to doubt that this will be any different. But while they have solidarity, there's some resentment among the backup crew, what with a woman, a Chinese American, and a guy 10 years past his prime, all being the prime crew on this. They see this as a shift from meritocracy to optics. Though as episode 6 showed with Margot, merit was never really a part of it, just how well you played the political game. In therapy, Gordo explains that things weren't as straightforward with the apartment as it seems. It's not that Tracy wants to divorce him, just that when she tells him to fuck off, she wants a place for him to fuck off too, besides another woman's bed. She's going up soon, actually, with Molly Cobb, just for satellite repair in orbit. But still, that's an involved project, and Gordo is starting to get the worry that the spouses go through. And speaking of concern for loved ones, Aleda's father's at the point where he needs to start cock-blocking, or else there's going to be some unauthorized docking at their house. Well, Gordo gets home and Tracy gives him the cold shoulder, the stink eye, and other unfriendly anatomical features, presuming that he left work to go screw around. Admittedly, she's playing the odds, but Gordo finally comes clean that he was seeing a psychiatrist, something NASA can't possibly find out. The fact he feels the need to do this sets off warning bells for her. There's only two possibilities. Either something happened to him during his isolation on the moon, or he's desperate to play out his Bob Newhart fantasies for real. Tension is now starting to mount at the top. Ed has confirmed the Russians are doing something subterranean over there, or sublunarian, whatever the term is. They're digging a basement. The question, though, is why. The 4-star general thinks it's for military purposes, because, that's kind of his job. The head of NASA thinks it could just be something as straightforward as better protection from radiation. The bone of contention is that NASA is a civilian science and research organization, not a military. But the general feels that this is already a military situation, and Ed is a Navy captain after all. As for President Kennedy, he's torn between the inept appearance of keeping Ed stuck alone on the moon and the way it's distracting everyone from his sexual acrobatics. Well, for right now, it's the status quo. Ed heading down to the moon mine, hoping he won't run into Russians, or even worse, Zygonnauts. I'm betting there's like 20 people who are still alive who might get that one.
Zygonnauts approaching. You'll never get me. Continue game, Captain.
Worst part is, I didn't have to look that up, and it's from 40 years ago. I still can't recall what Brock's actual name is. Well, while Ed is poking about, he spots something down there, and we sure as hell didn't put it there, so we don't even know what it is. The head of NASA wants Ed to just leave it alone, avoid provoking an international incident on the moon, whatever it might be called. But all Ed knows is this is their patch of the moon, and Ivan's got no business poking around down here. You got the whole rest of the damn moon to go pee on. Leave this alone. Ed still has no idea that his son is in surgery. The way shows are edited, you get days on one plot thread and hours on another. But Tracy has come to support Karen during this rough time, even though she's supposed to be in The Sims tomorrow. Well, word comes in that Shane is brain dead, and Karen takes the news with a massive side helping of denial. So Tracy is going to ask Deke to bring in the best neurologist there is. Meanwhile, the question is whether or not to tell Ed his son is brain dead. The NASA head and this guy say no. Deke says yes. And Margot says to ask Karen. She would know Ed best. Karen, though, is still in denial. She's a mother whose last words were grounding him. She wants to assume the experts are wrong and he's going to get better. So Ed is to hear nothing. In fact, she's going to have the regular call with him and just act like everything is normal and Shane is just fine. I get the feeling pretending things are fine when they're not is old hat for her by now. Meanwhile, Aleda is meeting with Margot and starts off on the wrong foot by lying about why she was late. But Margot reveals that a letter has arrived saying that Aleda has been accepted for 2 advanced classes at the Kennedy School, but it means starting next month, and Aleda is young and in love. So Margot lays out the harsh truth. You want to actually pursue this, you're going to have to sacrifice along the way. Life doesn't let you have it all. Aleda's torn between her heart that wants to be an engineer and her heart that says that she wants to make out with that boy. While she's struggling with that impossible choice, someone makes a bad one.
Forgive me, do I know you?
Jerry Biddle, Houston Sentinel. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
This guy's got all the decorum of a nude narcissist at a funeral. Well, Karen's big moment is here. She has to talk to Ed without giving away that his son is likely brain dead.
Hey, how did the game go?
Pass. She eventually rallies. She really sells it. I mean, wow. She's like a gold medalist in the category of let's pretend grandma's not blurting racial slurs at the cat. She gets through that, but the news story is out there, and Margot has to address Mission Control. Make clear that they're to neither say nor imply anything, because that's what Karen wants, okay? Don't want to get in the middle of that one, all right? Except the Russians are either mistakenly thinking that Ed already knows, or have decided that they'll fuck with him, because they express their sympathies about his son. Ed calls up Houston, and Gordo's the poor bastard stuck talking to him about this. Ed thinks they're monitoring communications, the Russians I mean, and that they heard about the basketball game and are now messing with his head. So he's heading down to the mine to work out his frustrations, while back on Earth, Karen finally meets with the neurologist. This thing with Shane has to be put into Karen's overall character arc. She is someone who has had to cope with Ed's career choice for more than 20 years now. Him being shot down in Korea, him going into space, him being on the moon for months. Her dream of the panther eating him alive. She is someone who has spent most of her life having to act normal while feeling terrified, express outrage because it's easier than allowing that crack in the wall to first start breaking it down and leave her psyche exposed, raw, and vulnerable. To be steeled for decades for the news that her husband wasn't coming back alive, only to learn that it's not him but her son that has fallen. It's not just a blow. It's a blow from the direction that she never expected that it would be. Never thought about Shane being the one. Always considering it would be Shane losing a father and never Ed losing a son. To always prepare for and fear the day death would walk through the door, only to take the one she wasn't prepared to lose. Any parent is going to break at this. But for Karen, this is pulling away something so fundamental, it's as if suddenly the color blue no longer existed. She has nothing with which to face this situation. As for Ed, he's taking his frustrations out on that Russian device. By the time he gets back, Karen is ready to share the truth about Shane. And having done that, it's back to what she does. Go on the offensive. Like confronting about that marijuana, like responding to Ed being grounded by NASA by considering the next play, Karen's means of coping with the fear and pain is literally with control. By trying to control the situation, by controlling her response to the situation, she's able to overcome it all. Even her objection to women astronauts is about that, about how by bringing in people without experience, they are one more factor that can go wrong, and she won't wear it. And Ed, he's cutting himself off. He shuts down everything that he can, curls up with Gordo's last stash of booze, and, well, that's it. Now remember what he said in the last episode, the one about how when he was shot down, and what they told him to do in the end was take a bottle, go into a hotel room, and don't come back out until you're ready. Well, he's essentially doing that again. So, what does that mean is going to happen? Well, let's go on to episode 9.